Welcome back to the I Got a Girl podcast. This is Coach Jackie here, your freedom mentor, and I am so beyond excited. I know you hear me say I'm excited every call, but I am because the women that I bring on are fucking fantabulous. So I'm excited to introduce you guys to Lisa Condon, who is a good friend of mine. We connected through networking at some point in time. I can't even remember when, but and now we feel like we've known each other forever, yet we barely ever talk. So it's a really cool dynamic. I'm excited for you guys to hear this conversation and her story. Lisa, tell the world about yourself.
Well, first of all, Jackie, so excited to be here. And I love what you just said because I couldn't agree more. And it's like, okay, the universe is finally like, okay, ladies, it is time to get together. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so I'm an executive coach. I'm an international speaker. I'm a certified facilitator of WEN stories. But that's kind of what I do professionally. Personally, like I am an adventurer. That's kind of like my spirit animal. Live music. You're going to find me sitting by a fire or at the beach, always with my husband, oftentimes with my dog, that type of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just a lover of life and, bringing impact to the world in all the ways that I can.
And you were an East Coaster, kind of Northeast Coaster, right? Originally,
I'm
and
an
now
East
you're,
Coaster at heart, man. Like,
yeah,
and now
me
I live
too.
in Nashville, but I grew up in kind of the Mid-Atlantic region. Then I lived in the Northeast, and then, lived on the beach for a while in Delaware. And then my husband and I
Nice.
took advantage of the market, threw caution to the wind, and ended up in Nashville, Tennessee for the past year and a half. Yeah.
Can't wait to bring the RV through. Can't wait to
Hey,
bring the
we've
RV
got
through.
we got space. Got space, girl.
Awesome. Well, as you know, this podcast is about the I Got It Girl, that woman who mostly led life from this survival, control, and fear place that really can provide a wonderful life. And then there's a point where we realize there's missing pieces. Like for me, it was missing love, like true love, where I would allow people to love me and not and allow myself to love another. It was missing pieces like this joy from an abundance mindset versus like the scarcity mindset. And so when I say the I got it girl, what comes up for you? What story or what do you want to share when it comes up for your story?
Oh my goodness. There's
There's
so
probably a
much.
ton of them, right?
Yeah,
Sorry.
there really is. And because when I think of I got it, girl, there's the messy middle, right? And when I think I got it together, the reality is none of us have it all together. It's what you show to the world. But for me, the I got it is I am living my life now in the legacy that I want to leave to the world. Like I'm living that. And all of the trials, the tribulations, the experiences that took me to this place are all significant in their own way. I like to say that I grew up professionally in the corporate world, and I was in the newspaper industry for many years, and I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And so for those that don't know Lancaster, like um I call it Lancaster Prude because there is a very strong mindset of what happens behind closed doors stays behind closed doors, and you don't talk about feelings, and you don't talk about those
Mhm.
things. And I grew up in that environment, and and I had some trauma as a kid, and I started just kind of putting all these layers on. And so between here's a certain way that you're supposed to live life of, you grow up, you find somebody, you fall in love, you get married, you have kids, you buy a house, you buy a second house. And oh, by the way, while you're doing that and you're working, you're climbing that corporate ladder and you're doing all those things simultaneously. Um, and I was competitive. So I did all of those things. And yet it wasn't fulfilling. I didn't know it wasn't
Mhm.
fulfilling. It was just kind of this, because success by conventional definition, man, I was living the dream, right?
Mhm.
But I wasn't
Mhm.
living my dream. And
Mm.
so, when things started to shift within me and I had lost my voice, like not physically, but I was in a very male dominated world. The sexual trauma I'd had as a kid played on that. And in terms of not being able to speak up. And then one day I'm like, F this. I
Yeah.
need to speak up and really, and it was the precipice, Jackie, wasn't when I had to stick up for myself. It was when I had to stick up for my team.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And that was a game changer for me, and that ooh, just getting goosebumps, and that shifted everything. And when that happened and I spoke up for myself and I realized, oh, I just shed a layer of the
Mhm.
bullshit that wasn't serving me. And once you see and feel, you can't unsee and you can't unsee
No.
that. And that was the start. That was the start of my changing careers and direction and really stepping into to who I was and am at the core. And
Mhm.
I'm celebrating 20 years next month in business, and I'm so damn proud of that. And I keep shedding layers, right? I mean, we all do.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
I
that,
love it.
yeah.
First of all, cussing's absolutely allowed, so you don't need
Thank you, because
to
I'm like,
buffer.
okay.
I heard you say F and I was like, "Oh, girl, you can say it." I was laughing when I was creating the podcast and I was working with someone about it. I was like, she's like, well, you can click the like illicit content thing. And I'm like, well, I don't think the F word's illicit. I don't think like, you know, it's made for kids. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll click not made for kids only because if mom's listening to this in the car on the way to school, I'm like, but then again, kids have heard more words than we've heard and they've experienced
Amen.
more than
That's
we
true.
have nowadays. So
Yes, yes.
I feel like innocent compared to what kids are experiencing nowadays. So, but thank you for sharing that story. And you know, that male dominated industry thing was huge for many of us. First of all, like it's hard for me, and it's probably hard for people when I say it too. Like it's hard for me to hear that like you couldn't speak your voice because I know you today and I didn't know you then. It's hard
Mhm.
for me to like go, what? Like there was a day and I remember that day for me, like really kind of kicked off. Okay, you remember the moments was like my sophomore year. I was starting a new school and I was like, nobody knows me here. Like nobody knows me as Shy Jackie. Nobody knows me as the one who doesn't talk. And I just decided that day, and I'm not sure where it came from. It was obviously before coaching and mentorship. And I was
Yeah.
just like decided I was gonna be my whoever I am and talk to everybody. And that kicked off the trajectory of not being shy anymore and speaking my voice more. Now, of course, we grow over years. So, so I came from the 30-year restaurant industry, right? And total male dominated industry and
Mm.
totally having to like, work twice as hard to get the same position as the
Mhm.
man and we're not dogging men, but that's just the nature of some of these industries and they're changing, they're
Yes.
shifting. Um, so I'm curious, like, what was it that, like, let's refresh the point when you were like, okay, because I wanted people to really hear like what shifted for you. And it's not a one and done. We know it wasn't
Yeah.
just one time I shifted, you know?
Right.
It was like
Yeah.
what built it, but what was like the kickoff? And then how did you stay in that momentum of and not go back? Because we have these old stories that we get stuck in, right? And we always our body and brains like go back to safety. Like being quiet and being
Totally do.
small is safety. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and you're right, and I think the whole these adages and these old sayings are around for a reason, like two steps forward, one step back. But that's very real, and that's very true.
Mhm.
I think for me, so I had been hired by one of the newspapers, funny enough, in New Jersey, and I had again been climbing the corporate ladder and the newspapers then were like a really big deal and so I was in circulation and then I moved over to advertising like all of these things but I was in management from the very beginning and ultimately I had this desire I wanted to be the publisher of a paper um, and I kind of ignored the red flags that would come up of needing to do certain things because it was what was expected as a leader in the organization. And I mean, and let's face it, in corporate space, when you're in middle management, that you have to manage up and you have to manage down. And
Yeah,
sometimes you might
absolutely.
not agree with what leadership is putting out, but you have to do the things. It's part of the job. But there were just some things that just felt off. And I kind of ignored them. And for the detriment of just, I guess, my own, again, succeeding in the conventional way. But during this time and one of the and I transferred papers a lot because I was really good at going in and kind of cleaning stuff up, moving things forward. And I was known
We
for
are
that.
so much alike. Oh my
I know.
God.
Well, I'm listening to you. I'm like, yeah, yeah. Like,
I
and
was the put out the fire girl in the
yeah,
restaurant industry.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I lived in a lot of states because of that. And so the last state that I was living in this particular newspaper group, I was in Vermont, and I was classified advertising was a thing then, so I ran classified advertising, and my boss was out on maternity leave, and so I had stepped into her shoes while she was gone, and essentially the I had employment reps that reported to me, and they did the employment ads, and they had a windfall that came in from an organization because they were like doubling in size, and their goals were salary plus commission, and
Mm,
man, they were blowing out this commission. And like when I say they were dancing in the call center room, I'm not exaggerating, they literally were dancing because there was no cap. There was no
mm,
cap to what they could make commission wise. And I'll never forget this. The publisher came walking downstairs and said, Lisa, I need to talk to you. And he pulled me into the office and said, we can't pay them. We're not going to be able to pay them all of this. And I was in shock. I'm like, what do you mean? Like,
mm,
yes, we will, because the way the commission structure is built, there's no cap. And that's totally unfair and it's wrong. Like for me, looking back now, it was an integrity issue. And integrity is my
absolutely.
number
Yeah.
one core value. And there was a huge integrity issue. Jackie, when I tell you that this was a fight, we ended up having to bring my boss back in for maternity leave to have a conversation with him. I mean, it was a big deal. Ultimately, they got paid. And ultimately, we changed the commission structure to have a cap.
Hmm.
Totally reasonable to do that afterwards. But that changed something in me. And
Hmm.
it changed something at my core. And all during that time, I had been asked for years, do you consult? Are you a consultant? Do you freelance? Do you do this? And my answer was always no. Well, that same day that all of this happened, the universe does its thing. Somebody asked me, hey, by the way, do you consult? And I said, yes. And
Matter of fact, I do.
that's what started everything. Now, it took some time to step full time into my business, and some things happened between that moment and then when I was fully out on my own. Um, but I had my timeline for myself and knowing of what changed at my core, and at that point, nothing else mattered except me living my truth. Now, I
Mhm.
swung that pendulum where
Mhm.
sometimes when you aren't speaking who you truly are at the core and you're not living in that authentic space, you
Mhm.
swing that pendulum and all of a sudden it's like that becomes really rough for people because holy goodness, where did this woman come from? Right. And so
Mhm.
there was a lot of that. And so I needed to let it kind of settle because I was like this trailblazer of like, I'm going to speak my truth and I'm going to say all the things. Well, that also wasn't who I was at the core. I just was finding my voice and being
Yeah.
able to say all of the things that were within me. And then it settles. And once that does, and like you said, me now, you would have, you would have been, it would have been very different knowing me then. I was
Mhm.
just showing the shell of who I was and not the core of who I was. Yeah.
There's so many nuggets in what you just shared. Like that piece right there of when we're not aligned,
Mhm.
things get a little rocky. And that's like when we feel the resistance, the rockiness, the craziness, the like.
Mhm.
But I do believe that in life, we've got to try a bunch of things to figure out who we are again, right? Once we've been underneath like um a big conversation lately has been I'm this way at work and I'm this way with my family and I'm this
Mhm.
way with and I'm like, oh God, no, girl, no, like
Mhm.
no. And I think when we're in corporate America, we do that a bit. Like we when we're learning and we're growing and I think there's a point from my experience, I felt like I didn't know who I was, but I just knew how to be me when I was in my 20s. Like I was just like, fuck it, like just like
Mhm.
go for it. And then you get into these corporate structures where it's like you've got to prove yourself and prove yourself. So now you're proving yourself and you're doing it in a way that's like fitting into what you think they need you to be and do to prove yourself so that you can move up the ranks and do things. And I always knew I wanted to point out where you're like, I just knew my body that wasn't right. Like this
Mhm.
integrity thing. And I felt that multiple times. Sometimes I listened
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sometimes I didn't.
Mhm.
I know a lot of people listening can relate to that like dissatisfaction feeling of where you're at in it could be a career, it could be your business. It could be, I mean, we're not just advocating only for businesses. I
Yeah.
do believe there's a lot of amazing jobs and careers you can be in with great leadership and really excel and have your time freedom, your money freedom, and location free, all the things. And there's a point where lines are crossed and things, and you just like you're tired of being the sick and tired. You're
Mhm.
done. Like you just know, and your body knows it. So thank you for sharing that because I want to help people. Like you ignore it, but so
Mhm.
stop ignoring it. Like don't ignore it because there is always other possibilities. Okay, so you step out and that person says to you, "Do you consult?" And you say yes for the first time. So was it just like poof, everything worked out? I built $100,000 business and boom.
Oh, well, of course.
Of
Doesn't it always
course.
work that way? I mean, come on, wave the magic wand. Um, no, God, no. However, what was fascinating about that was this person that had asked me before on multiple occasions. And
Mhm.
so there even could have been because, our memories are we remember it as through our perception. But it wouldn't have surprised me if he had said, "Are you consulting yet?" Like, you know what I mean? Because
Right.
the fact that he had kept asking, and funny enough, it was for a music festival that was being held in Vermont. And what I found out about myself by saying yes to this was they created this great music festival. It was tied in with the lake, Lake Champlain up in Vermont. And I was like, what if we did a nonprofit day? What? Like, I don't know where that came from within me because I didn't really know much about nonprofits at that time. I just knew that Burlington in particular was saturated with them. And so I created something called Nonprofit Palooza and brought all these nonprofits. And like, we had a nonprofit day and we had a kids' day that we brought like camps from all over the area, YMCA, that type of thing, down to have this kids' day. And I added this entire full day to this event because somebody asked the question. And where that
Mhm.
came from inside of me, like I really don't know. I didn't have experience in that specifically. But I took all
Mhm.
the things that I cared about and I loved and I was building in terms of community and giving back and understanding my heart space. And I took that and ran with it.
Right there. Let's pin
Yeah.
that for a second.
Yeah.
When we come from the heart space, and I just chose a card this week, it says, I choose love no matter what. From
Yes.
one of my universe has your back deck. And yes, we have lots of decks of cards and Lisa even sells them on her like website. So go on her website
Can
and
I
check
just
them
show
out.
you something? This
Yes.
just hit the print.
Oh my gosh. I was looking at them. I'm like, which one do I want to buy? So maybe I'll wait for that one. For that one.
Hot off the press,
Mhm.
baby.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And here's the funny part about like things like card decks and pulling cards and this and that. If you told me 7 years ago that I'd be remotely like pulling cards or meditating or any of that stuff, I came from such a masculine energy from a bunch of boys in my family, like four boys and my dad and my mom not around because she passed away, and then like went into the restaurant industry, which was like masculine, masculine, men, 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 men. And then I'm like, this woo, this
Mhm.
energy thing was like totally new to me. So I love that now, like we're creating decks and we're pulling them daily, and like we're reading our future from it. I mean, that's just it's so funny. I love it. Anyway, um, that heart space, that
Mhm.
like that place where we know there's like your heart, your gut. Like we could go into the whole like chakra system and all that stuff, but we'll keep it simple today. Maybe a whole nother one. But that like that's that inner knowing in that space. And when you go from there, like it sounds batshit crazy, but it works, and the money shows up, and like the joy. When you described it just now, it felt so much fun. It felt so
Mhm.
fun. What you yes, it was work what you created and what you put out there for that festival day, but it sounded so fun in comparison to what you described in the newspaper industry. Now, I'm not saying you didn't enjoy your newspaper industry job. I enjoyed my restaurant job, but it wasn't as like core fun as I have now
Yeah.
because I'm coming
Agreed.
from my own heart space.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's kind of funny. When I was a kid, I played Office. All my friends were playing House, playing with Barbies, playing, some did their Hot Wheels or whatever. And funny enough, most of my friends when I was real little were boys. But I played Office.
And
And
teacher.
so
I
so
played
and it's
teacher
funny, a lot of people
tasks.
played teacher. Yeah. I went dumpster diving after school ended so I could get all the notebooks and stuff because that's how I was keeping my schedule. And I loved playing Office, and I still get to play Office today. And
Yes.
still, you know, and so in doing that, and it's kind of comical because, you know, both of my parents are gone too, as you know, and as we just moved and I was going through boxes because I'm trying to also purge and get rid of things. And one of the things that I came across was this box of all of things my mom had kept of mine that I wrote over the years and did over the years. And um, whew, yeah. And she wrote a little bit about how her daughter was always just playing Office and that
Mm,
she knew that someday, like, the impact that I would make on the world would be through whatever I built. And so, what she never got to see me build the company that I have today. She was gone before that, right? Just and
mhm.
unfortunately, same as your mother. I mean, they see it just not in the physical form.
Yeah.
And it is joyful work, and I take that very seriously, and I very much look at that all the time, and so every year I read the book Start With Why. Every year I take inventory of, am I still doing the things that are in alignment with who I am at the core? Because I think as business people, oftentimes we find that people are like, "Oh my gosh, Jackie, you would be so great at doing X." And you're like, "Okay, I will do that because I've got the skills. I can do all the things." And you end up doing something that maybe that return on energy isn't there. That return on joy
Mhm.
isn't there. And you don't realize it until you take that intentional pause and audit that for yourself. And so I started doing that maybe 7 or 8 years ago, maybe a little longer than that now. But anyway, a while ago. And I'm so glad that I do that every year because it's so interesting how that can continue just to pop up for yourself. And you get out of that heart space and you get into your head space and you got to bring it back, you know? And so sometimes it's daily, but sometimes it's on a bigger scale to look at it too.
There's no coincidences in our conversations, girl. Like I literally just yesterday, I was working with somebody on creating a new program and the next thing I want to launch, and it was going to be this like 5 month container that I run twice a year, and like you could pay for the whole year, like all these like elements to it. And I just it's been like 4 weeks, and I was like, I'm just not feeling like I haven't really put it out yet. Like I've mentioned it here and there, but like when I know something's right, I'm like, psh, psh, go. Like the Florence retreat
Hmm.
I put out last week, it was like 3 spots sold, boom, 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 boom. Like we've only got like 6 spots left. Like, let's go. I've got three
Hmm.
people that are ready to go put payments in. And so like when you know, but this a thing like it's been dragging on it. And I didn't key in until someone said, well, what if it's not what you want to do?
Hmm.
And like I teach this stuff, right? And I need so this is where I just want to like mention real quick. Coaches need coaches. Like people need people.
Amen. Say that again, Jackie.
Coaches
Say
need
that
coaches
again.
because I took a break for a long time and I have peers, I have great friends and we communicate probably once a week and but there's a very big difference between having peers and having someone who you invested in yourself with who helps you see what you cannot see
Hmm.
and um, helps reflect back your magic to you, reminds you of your greatness so that you will take action on your greatness, right?
Yeah.
And when this person said this to me, and these are people, this was a program that I paid for to join and be in, ended up being a solo program because no one else joined but me. So I got a solo
Oh,
program out
look
of
at
something that
that.
was going to be a
Yes.
group. And she like said that to me, and it was like this like permission to honor self, permission to honor the way that I function and how I function is one of those like I feel something, I pop it out, put it out, and it's like a pop-up group, and then I fill it and it'll be magical. And then I do that multiple times a year because I've run on this like and I can rerun those things, but like if I feel it and if I feel it, I'm like, let's go. And but I was trying to be strategic and I'm still strategic, but I was trying to be strategic in the way someone else told me I needed to be, or someone else said like I saw someone else doing it, or like what you just mentioned. And I I want to just point out to everybody that it's that resistance. When you feel resistance, we think it's got to be hard for it to be good or for it to work out. No, 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 it's the opposite.
Hmm.
when it feels right and it feels good and you go, and not, I don't mean you're not gonna be scared. I'm not, that still can be there, all those feelings of, oh my gosh, like excited and nervous at the same time. But we're so trained that everything's got to be hard work, hard work, hard work, hard work.
Yeah.
No, no, no. The way when I realized it, I was like, oh, this feels easy
Mhm.
because it feels aligned with me. Back
Yeah.
to what you said in the very beginning. It's aligned with me. But I don't think I want to throw that aligned word out for a second because it's thrown out like candy now. Like, be aligned, align with yourself. Like, did you know what that meant until you, or like, we know it now, we speak to it now, but tell me your feelings on the whole alignment side because I didn't get it. I was honoring it at a certain age, and then I was dishonoring it, and then I was honoring it again. But now I get it. But it's
Mhm.
not something that comes naturally unless you're working with someone to help you understand it. Like, help. I don't know if that makes sense, but tell me
Yeah,
your
it does
thoughts.
make sense. I don't know if I can pinpoint when I realized what alignment actually was. What I can tell you is once I felt it, again, it goes back to once you see, you can't unsee. Once you feel, you can't
Yes.
unfeel.
Yeah.
Um, and I do think alignment is about mind, body, spirit, all being in alignment, and you mentioned chakras earlier, and and I think there's something to that for sure. Um, but I also believe it's about alignment with your core values, and your core values are truly who you are. And oftentimes people say they know their values, and I will oftentimes push back and say, have you done the work? And well, sure. Have you really done the work? Because I think what happens is that layers are built, it starts when you're a kid, right? And so,
Mhm.
I mean, we have parents, we have teachers, we have, whether Sunday school or whatever else you might be around. We had Teen Beat magazine where we learned stuff, right? Like society stuff. And each one of those things added a layer of the shoulds, who we should be,
Mhm.
what we should be doing, how we should be leading life. And until you start asking those hard questions of yourself, can you shed that and get back to the core of who you are? And let's face it, every time you shed one of those layers, step comes up, right? And then you got to go with that. And then you get to the next layer. So until you do that work, and I don't ever suggest doing it by yourself because you're
Mhm.
never going to ask yourself the hardest questions and
Mhm.
challenge you. And so having a coach or somebody else to be able to challenge that, I think is really important. And when you figure out what those core values are for yourself and building a life that has that as your North Star, and then I build everything on in the framework and foundation of gratitude, as you know, like
Mhm.
that to me is where alignment comes from. And if
Mhm.
something is not aligned with my value system, I feel it immediately. I feel it before I inherently know it.
Mhm.
And that took time to get there. But like you said earlier, paying attention to that,
Mhm.
that's the important piece, like not ignoring that offness, or feeling
Mhm.
ugh. Um, so and it's fascinating because I think also when I was a kid, like 6 and under, I was very free spirited, did all the things. Then I had the sexual trauma happen, and that stunted who I was
Mhm.
until it didn't. And it didn't until I was close to 30. So I lived this life of very like black and white, very competitive, have to do the things, have to, and I didn't know I wasn't living in alignment
Mhm.
because I was living in my head space. When you drop into back to that heart space, when you drop there, that's when all the real stuff happens.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the
Girl,
shifting,
I-
yeah.
the difference, the thing you just said is huge. You said there's head alignment and there's heart alignment. Head
Mhm.
alignment comes from all the stories, all the layers, all the things that all the shoulds, all the things that you learned. And
Yeah.
a lot of times, a lot of us are in the head alignment of what we think we should be doing,
Yeah.
what feels right to society, the 2.5 kids, picket fence, married,
Yeah.
jobs, security,
Mhm.
whatever, 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 whatever. But the heart alignment, that's so different. And
Yeah.
core values, they change. They, I mean, for me, and why I say this is that someone says, "Well, my core value is family. Like, everyone should have family as core values." Like, well, that wasn't my core values. One of my core values growing up. It doesn't mean I don't love my family. It doesn't mean I'm not like that they're not important to me. but I didn't make some of the decisions based on my family. I based it on me. Like my decisions ever since I was a kid, like I've lived a very freedom life. I'm the baby of 8 kids, and that was like you have to. I had to figure everything out myself anyway. So I was going to choose. But now one of my core values has switched to family because now I'm a stepmom of 4 kids. I have 3 grandbabies, a fourth grandbaby coming up, and I'm so excited because it brings from the heart to be able to go spend time with them whenever I want and to watch them grow up and then find the property that they're all going to come spend the summers with us at. Like different things that like weren't important to me back then are important to me now. So that's one. And then there's some core ones that stay the same the entire time. Love and freedom are 2 core values for me that have never changed.
Yeah. So I'll give you my take on core values. And it's funny because I have a little story to share with you too about it.
Yes.
So the way that I learned about values was I was doing a year-long leadership program up in Vermont. And the opening weekend, we did this values exercise and there were value cards. And we went through this whole thing and you had to, it basically narrowed it down to your top two. Funny enough, I still have that paper too, because they wanted you to write down your top 16. And then, anyway, got to the
Mm-hmm.
top two. And before we shared them, one of the things that was said was there's one value that at that point, 95% of people have it within their top two. And they were like, so how many of you have family in your top two core values? And everybody but me raised their hand. And so, like,
You're so
that's why I was smirking at you as you were talking because I'm like, oh gosh, like, yeah. So, and it wasn't even in my top 16. And in fact,
mm-hmm.
it was one of the first ones I put to the side. Now, family is still not in my top 2, and I would say it's probably in my top 10 now. But to your point, unless something and this is written in white papers and all of that. So unless something has significantly shifted in your life, your top 2 core values actually stay the same throughout your life because that's what's built when you are a kid. And sometimes they might shift from like prioritizing one over the other, like top one, top two. But unless something majorly has happened, they don't change. It's like the third through the 10th of where they might come in and out. So kind of what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they are guiding principles. And mine, funny enough, are integrity and creativity. Those are my top
Mm-hmm.
2. I do the values card exercise. I ended up creating my own because, of course I wanted more
Because
service.
creativity is one of your top values.
Right, exactly, exactly. But I do them and I actually work with somebody else to make sure that I'm getting asked the hard questions, all the things, and it comes out the same every time for my top 2. All the rest of them shift, and
I
I
love
don't do
that.
them every year, but I do them every other year. Um, but to your point, I think experiences and things that happen do influence what we value. But here's the thing, and this would be the thing, and it's funny when we were talking beforehand about, is there going to be something that you want people to remember? This is going to be it, right? And this is actually part of my legacy in that you cannot, like, okay, you don't always value your priorities, but you can
Mm-hmm.
always prioritize your values.
Mm.
And
Everybody's mind going, hold on. They're going back 10 seconds now to re-listen to that.
yeah, because it's really true. I mean, think about what you prioritize in your life every single day, in your business every single day. Do you value everything that you're putting first? No, the answer is no. None of us. None of
Mm-hmm.
us do. And if you are doing it 100% of the time, like write the book, make the magic, and put it out there.
Right.
Seriously. But you always have the opportunity to prioritize your values. And I think some of that starts coming up when you get into situations like caregiving, and I know you and I have both had to experience that, or when
Mhm.
it's a situation of life or death, or when it's a situation where your partner is experiencing something and you just have to do the things because that's
Mhm.
part of what you need to do. Well, the same thing, like for me with the integrity piece, like I needed to protect my staff. And that came
Mhm.
up because it was in me. Did I know what core values were at that time? Hell no. I didn't know what that
No.
was. I just knew that it was misaligned of what was happening. And so, but integrity, like I'll tell you right now, like leading with integrity is so important to me. And if I even sniff out a little bit that somebody who wants to work with me does not come from a place of integrity, they're
Mm-hmm.
not in my not only will I not work with them, they're not in my sphere. They don't
Mm-hmm.
they don't get to have that space with me. And that's very real. And that's very, very real for me.
That's
So it's a
powerful.
hard stop. Yeah.
Well, that was what I was going to ask is what's your biggest, takeaway and thing you want to leave with the peoples. And I love that. So say it one more time, that saying.
Yeah. So you don't always value your priorities,
Okay.
but you can always prioritize your values.
And that brings me back to we have a choice. We get to, we have the power of choice.
Yes.
So I want to tie that in because you said we can prioritize our values. We don't always do it, but we can prioritize, we can choose to prioritize them. But you also got to identify them first. So, on that note, if you feel like you need to connect with Lisa because of all of this wisdom that she has just dumped on you, and that's every call I ever have with her, I feel like we're dumped with wisdom. And dumped, I mean in the best way possible, by the way.
Yeah, no, I know that's so kind of
How can
you.
they stay in touch with them? With us?
Yeah. So I make things very easy for people. So my website is my name, lisacondon.com. My email is lisa@lisacondon.com. So people can check me out there. I'm on all the socials too. So people can check me out there. I will tell you, you are more than likely going to get a faster response from me if you email me. You and I had this conversation. But I will, if you message me, I will find it. I will get it. It just might be a little bit slower, but I
Mhm,
love connecting with people. I love
mhm.
understanding their stories and where they're at and what they're experiencing. And so even if it's just reaching out to say, "Hey, these are my core values. Like, tell me. I want to hear." And I just want to hear
Yes.
how you're experiencing them in your life.
I love that. I love that. And I was just stalking her website before our call, and it's really cool stuff on there that you might end up purchasing, just saying. Um, so thank you so much for coming today, Lisa. And I feel like we're going to have lots more episodes in the future at some point in time. I can always tell which guest is going to have multiple ones with me. It's kind of funny because we could probably talk for hours. And I like to keep these somewhere in that 30 to 45-minute range. So we're going to wrap it up today. But thank you so much for coming.
Jackie, thank you for having me. And thank you for sharing your wisdom and your love for life to the world. It's really magical.
It's been such a gift. I'll just end with that. It's been such a gift to be able to do this podcast, and I swore up and down I'd never do one. So never say never, guys. All right. So those of you listening in on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. If you're listening on your podcast channel, follow. It helps everybody see the magic of these wonderful ladies that we're sharing their stories, and people need to know they're not alone. So thanks for coming. I'll see you on the next episode.